Awesome. Hello, and thank you for tuning in live today. Today is Sunday, August 27th, about 1 p.m. I'm your host, Jason Leeser, and if this is working for you, please let us know in the comments and the chats, and please tag a friend who loves tattoos. And welcome to Guy Aitchison's Reinventing the Tattoo Community, where tattooers, apprentices, collectors, and the curious are encouraged to join in these live streams, real world events, to share and inspire and ultimately create better art and tattoos together. We beam out nearly every day, and with your help, have evolved into a quality network of amazing live and on demand tattoo and art shows that have all been receiving rave reviews. You can find Reinventing the Tattoo in both of the app stores, the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store, as well as our Reinventing the Tattoo YouTube channel, our Reinventing the Tattoo Roku channel, which has 12 to 15 episodes going at any given point in time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as well as all of the major podcast directories such as Apple and Spotify, where you can do what most people do and just do a browser search for Reinventing the Tattoo and you'll find it all, except for the book, which is out of print. I'm still trying to find a copy of that myself. So if you come across a copy, please let me know. I would like to purchase it. But no matter where you were watching live or on demand, you can always get the latest and greatest, most up-to-date information, all available at www.reinventingthetattoo.com. You can try it out for free. You can pick one of three options. We have a sample webinar from the Reinventing the Tattoo canon, or you can choose some free advice from Guy Aitchison about your unique goals, or you can take a comprehensive tattoo history course from Jay Brown. I myself am a tattoo nerd, so I like the history course the best, but that's just me. You can also find a full event schedule with full weekly and special event live stream details at reinventingthetattoo.com, as well as access to our Reinventing 24/7 channel, which is a lot like our Roku channel. It's got about 13 different episodes playing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And at reinventingthetattoo.com, you have access to over 20 world-class tattooers, professional development seminars, all at your fingertips. They're all right there. You can purchase them. Maybe you want to learn more about lettering from BJ Betts, or maybe a koi tutorial from Andre Malcolm, or maybe a black and gray seminar from Bob Tyrell, all available at reinventingthetattoo.com. Once again, if this is working for you, please drop a comment or a chat, and please tag a friend who loves tattoos. We have a number of staple shows that we always encourage people to tune into, starting off on Sundays at 1 p.m. with me, Jason Leeser, for the Skill Building Sunday Drawing Group. Following that, on Mondays at 9 a.m., we have Drawing for Tattooers with James Wisdom, where we go through and we discuss basic drawing techniques and strategies, as well as other advanced topics in fine art, maybe light source or perspective, all to help us get back to our roots of being a tattoo artist. And the primary emphasis there is on the word artist. We want to get back to art, understanding art better, and drawing better. Following 9 a.m. Drawing for Tattooers with James Wisdom, we have another live open group at 5 p.m. on Mondays, and that's Let's Talk About Feelings with Robbie Ripple, which gives us a safe space to go through and kind of talk about things and discuss things that maybe other people that aren't part of the industry might not quite grasp or understand, or maybe they don't get it. But this gives us a place to go through and vent and kind of talk about, things that might be bothering us. Once again, that's 5 p.m. Let's Talk About Feelings with Robbie Ripple. Following that at 9 p.m. on Mondays, we have an exclusive drawing group for Reinventing the Tattoo subscribers. If you have a subscription to the Reinventing the Tattoo canon or the Reinventing the Tattoo evolution course, you can hop on these 9 p.m. Monday evening live group drawing sessions. They're absolutely phenomenal. Highly recommend you check them out. Those alone are worth the cost of getting those subscriptions. We cover different chapters in the Reinventing the Tattoo canon and work on specific things to help us all become better artists. Once again, that's Monday evenings at 9 p.m. Following that, on Thursdays at 6 p.m., we have the Tattoo Collecting 101 podcast with Fawn Baker, where we go through and we get to listen to different people's journeys in collecting their tattoos. Sometimes they do live convention coverage and live interviews with different artists as well. So stay tuned for that. That's on Thursdays at 6 p.m. We do have a special event coming up on top of today's special event, and that is the Paradise Tattoo Gathering. And that is from Thursday, October 12th through Sunday, October 15th. And it has got an all-star lineup of presenters this year, including people like Nick Baxter and Corey Ferguson. Gunnar's going to be there, who we'll be talking to in just a few minutes. Andy Chambers, Thea Duskin, Jake Meeks from the Fireside Tattoo Network, Tom Strom, Andre Malcolm, and that's just a few of the people that will be presenting at this year's Paradise Tattoo Gathering. Would like to go through and take a quick second to thank some of our sponsors and some of the people that make these shows happen, starting off with worldtattooevents.com, the largest, most comprehensive resource for tattoo events worldwide. They're constantly keeping everything updated. As we know, living in this post-pandemic era, there are still some tattoo events and shows that are getting rescheduled every now and then. So if you want the latest, most up-to-date convention information coming to a city or town near you, or maybe it's one you want to visit, take a look at worldtattooevents.com. Would also like to thank tattoonow.com, technology for tattooers. This is the leading edge in professional development, management, and digital tools for tattoo artists of all levels. They're constantly keeping everything upgraded and updated. They're 100% competitive with any type of CRM, mailing list, or scheduling software out there. So if you're really looking for the tools that can really help you get more clients in that want to get the tattoos that you really want to do, take a look at tattoonow.com. They've been doing this stuff for ages, and they are at the top of the game when it comes down to this kind of stuff. Would also like to thank Guy Aitchison at guyaitchison.com. He is the founder and inspiration behind Reinventing the Tattoo. You can go to guyaitchison.com where you can pick up a copy of his Biomech Encyclopedia. He's got some of his DVDs for sale. Occasionally, he's got some custom coil machines on there. Every now and then, you can find him selling a live original painting, but you can also get countless fine art prints, all at guyaitchison.com. And thank you very much, Guy, from the bottom of my heart, both personally and professionally, for everything that you have done for us. I can't thank you enough. As always, if you like today's episode and today's show, we ask that you post a positive review on the channel. Help us get the word out. Hit that like and subscribe button down at the bottom of the screen. If you would like to host a Reinventing the Tattoo event, become a sponsor of our community, or if you're looking for a fine art or a tattoo critique, you can always email management at reinventingthetattoo.com. And it is without further ado that I get to go through and interview and introduce today's guest speaker. We have with us Gunnar here, who in my mind is an absolute legend, who has always been an inspiration to me. Gunnar, I can't thank you for joining us today enough. It means a lot to me personally and professionally to have you on here. Thank you very much for joining us today and allowing us to ask you some questions.
Thanks, Jason. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, coming through loud and clear. So why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of background information on yourself, where you're from, where do you work, that kind of information.
Okay. So for those who don't know me, which is probably a lot now because tattooing's changed quite a bit. I started tattooing back in 1997 professionally in Connecticut, and then moved my career out to Ohio and California, between there and Southern California, for on and off for about 25 years. I'm currently back in Connecticut. I had to come back and help family, so I'm out here again. And then working right from where you see, because I've just been painting. I'm working on some art projects outside of tattooing. So mostly in the studio right now, just painting daily. So
Awesome.
yeah. So.
And what kind of background do you have in art? Did you go to art school? Did you, are you self-taught?
No,
Any formal education there?
no, I went to college here in Connecticut for business communication, and then I drew and stuff, but I wasn't like an artist. Like I would just call it like a notebook artist, you know, like I just sketched in a notebook when I was bored in class and stuff. And then, but I had drawn, I was like, I'd been in a punk band. I was like in the skateboard scene, punk scene when I was a kid. And I was singing in a punk band and got kicked out, but I was like drawing all the like, you know, poster art for the band and stuff. And like cassette, you know, back when we had cassette tapes and stuff. And so I was doing the art for that. And they were like, why don't you just do the art? Like, maybe that's where you're, maybe that's where your talents lie. So I did that for a while, and then I was like designing tattoos for friends and stuff around that time, throughout that like era. And then in college, I went to go get tattooed and had been given an offer for like an apprenticeship at one of the local shops. And then so that was kind of the start. Like I didn't know I wanted to really get into tattooing until like the idea like presented itself, and then I got like sucked in like immediately. Like I was like, oh, I didn't even know, because I didn't know that was like a thing. Like it's not like today where there was like television and the internet telling people that like you could become a tattoo artist. There was no like that was like a secret world. And so like I was fortunate enough to be invited kind of into it. So because I wouldn't have even known how to like I said, it wasn't as approachable as it is today. It was definitely a lot more intimidating, and it was a scary world back then. It felt like, oh, I lost you.
Nope, I'm still here.
Oh.
I just
Oh.
turned my video off, so primary focus was on you.
Oh.
Yeah, I hear that from a lot of different people, especially people that have been around for a while, that there was this mystique surrounding tattooing, and it was like this very exclusive club that, if you got in, it was like, oh man, this is great, but it was really difficult to get into, especially back around the time when you started. So that's awesome, man. I love hearing about that.
Yeah, it was definitely a way different world. And so I came into tattooing, and I wasn't like a very good art. It's not like today where the competition is so thick. And you got a bunch of kids coming out of art school becoming tattoo artists. It wasn't really like that. So I kind of got lucky, because I wasn't like, I could draw some, but I wasn't like good by any standards of measure today. And then but I got like, once I saw what was happening in the world of tattoo, once I kind of like got in, because I got really lucky. I was like I came in right like when the original like new school movement was kind of like really taking off in tattooing. So it was guys like Grime and Marcus Pacheco, and like all the stuff happening out in the world of San Francisco, and Adrian Lee and a bunch of guys out that way. And so there was like this, and the guy was huge, and Paul Booth and stuff. And so once I saw what people actually, because I wasn't like exposed to that type of tattoo art initially. And then once you saw what was capable, then I was like, oh, I want to be like an artist. Now I want to be an artist now. So that was kind of where like my like passion was born from, was actually like once I actually got into tattooing. So
that's awesome, man. And some of those names are names that we hear from a lot of different artists that have influenced and been influential to a number of different artists in different styles. And it's something that we hear resonating throughout, all of the interviews that we do, is that it's like, once you see what's capable of being done, it really just kind of motivates you to get better and to grow and to really kind of progress as an artist. You know, and just it opens your mind to different possibilities that can be done.
Yeah. I mean, it's huge. It's funny. I saw in the intro you kind of mentioned like guys reinventing the tattoo book, and I think I took that seminar when he like did the first like publication of that book and seminar. It was like in my earliest part of my tattoo career, and I had caught it at a convention. It was like I think maybe might have been the second seminar I ever took, and I would it like floor like that stuff was like wizardry back then. Like now it's, you know, a little bit more commonplace to see these things done in tattooing, but back then you were like, it was so like far beyond, you know, what was people were doing, that like I just remember being like, how the hell does someone even do this? Like, how do you even do this? Like it just seemed like unfathomable to me. So yeah, kind of.
Yeah. So even on top of, you know, your tattooing career, you're also an accomplished fine artist as well. I mean, you've done gallery shows, you've done exhibitions, you've got, you know, all different types of original painting that people can take a look at. You know, how do you think that that's kind of influenced your tattoo career, or has your tattoo career been more influential on that? Was that just kind of like a byproduct of doing tattoos, or, you know, how did they influence each other?
Well, so when I first got into tattoo, it was, you know, I did a lot of flash. Like I think I built my name in tattooing initially. Like I got really lucky because then I became part of like maybe what would be considered the second wave of new school, maybe. And so it was guys like me and Jimmy Litwalk. I mean, there's a bunch of names I you know, won't kind of delve into, but it was kind of like this second round of like new school that was kind of happening. And I did like a lot of flash, like, so, but I did it all. I never did watercolor. I'd always done colored pencil because I felt like the translation technically for me was closer to the way I tattooed than watercolor was, because I had to like move the pencils in a certain way and, you know, doing the blending, like I had to like move through various like value, you know, different values, like going from a dark green to a light green. You know, it just felt more authentic towards tattooing, or like more compatible with tattooing. And then I worked with a couple artists. I worked with this guy, Tom Cinnamon and Hoffa, back at Stained Skin. And this was like late 90s. And they were both painting at the time. And they kind of were like, you should try painting. Like, you'd probably enjoy painting. And I had never really done it. And then, so they helped me out a little and kind of like guided me a little in that direction. And then when I got into painting, then I was introduced to what was happening in the pop surreal world. So then all of a sudden, or back then it was like lowbrow art. So it was like all of a sudden I was seeing work by like guys like Todd Shore and Mark Ryden and Joe Soren. And that outside influence from the world of painting, I started bringing into tattooing, because that they were like very separate back then. And so I started bringing my influence of those artists into the world, and that style into tattooing, which in turn really blew up my career. Like then, like around early 2000s, it really started to take off for me. And so I got really lucky because I was painting that type of stuff, that a band at the time was looking to do some album art, and they were really interested in that type of work. And they had reached out to a couple of the big names in that world, and they were pretty expensive, pretty pricey for the album art that they wanted. And so the band, basically, they hit me up because they were interested in the style, and I had built a reputation in tattooing. And so they were like, hey, you know, if you're interested in doing this project, we'd love to have you. And that like helped my art, the painting career, kind of blossom. So from there, then I was getting like opportunities to do group shows, and I was getting opportunities to like, you know, work in that realm. So that opened up a lot of doors. And at the time, I really liked them because they were two separate like, although they were connected, they were two separate things for me, because I was taught to tattoo outline, black shade, color, like very traditional in technique. Although like in new school, you know, we were trying to push the bounds, what you could do with color and what you could do with style and stuff. But the foundation of my tattooing was very like rigid. It was like clean line work, black shade, you know, keep it solid and clean. And it was very like methodical. When I got into painting, it was like the exact opposite. I mean, it still had like rules, but there was a looseness to it. So I was able to like explore a lot in the world of painting that I couldn't do in the world of tattooing. One, I wouldn't have known how to use my tools at the time in tattooing to do the stuff I did in painting. And two, I didn't know, like, I didn't think it was acceptable, because now we see, you know, like realism or whatever is like, you know, like it's big now, but back then there was like nobody doing that. Like maybe Dino Cook was like just starting that genre. So those, like a lot of that techniques that I would have done in painting were way off limits of bringing into tattooing at the time. And so I kind of liked it. It just gave me like, I tattooed for my clients and then I painted for me, like, because I wanted to be able to explore stuff that I couldn't do on the skin. And so that's what I really loved. Like I fell in love with painting for that, because it was like, I was always making art. I would go tattoo from like, you know, noon till 9. And then I would paint from like 9 till 4 or 5 in the morning or whatever. It was like nonstop creation. But you can't like ask of a client what you can ask of a piece of canvas. Like I can work on a canvas 20 hours a day if I want, 7 days a week. And I don't have to worry about like where the budget is, if they're going to tap out on me. So there was a lot more like flexibility with painting than there was with tattooing for me. So I don't know if I went off on a tangent.
No, totally fine. Totally fine. Awesome. Do you prefer to work, when you're working on your paintings, do you prefer to work on like some of these massive canvases? Like, you know, you see some artists that work on just like ridiculously huge canvases, and then they'll photograph it and maybe scale it down for prints or whatever. Or do you prefer to work on like any size, or, you know, usually square or medium, big, small? Do you have any preference to that?
Primarily, I work small. I would work bigger, but I get like, sometimes it's hard for me to stay focused on stuff. So like at any given point, I'm working on like 25 different paintings. So the way I work is, yeah, it's like I have like an ADD method for sure. So the way I work is I really like the beginning stages of painting a lot, like the draw, because most of my paintings I don't like draw. I draw on the canvas. I design them on the canvas more so than like some people do, like they'll draw ahead of time and then they do a color study and then they do, you know, I tend to just I let it all just come out for the most part on the canvas. There's other times I'll do preliminary work, but I enjoy like just letting it happen on the canvas. So most of the stuff behind me, you know, it's just, I kind of will just start drawing and then I let it unfold. And I like that drawing stage. And then when I get to like doing all the final bits, it gets like tedious, because that's when you like are getting down smaller and smaller. And so I can't work on the tedious stuff late at night, but I can do the like drawing stage late at night. So what I like is that I have stuff in various stages, so that like wherever my brain happens to be at throughout the day, I can like take down a piece and then put in a different piece, because I'm always trying to like continually be creating. And so I will, like in the morning when I'm the freshest is when I'll probably promote, or, you know, like work the most on like finalizing paintings. And then in the evening, as I start to like get a little bit more like wore down, then I might start like sketching in stuff where I don't feel like there's as much chance for, you know, messing up or making mistakes from like being tired mentally. So I like that I can, like, at any point I can put something in, or if I'm getting bored with a picture, or maybe I think a painting needs like some time to sit, and so I can like think at it and look at it with clearer eyes, I'll like take the painting down and then I come back to it and then I'm like, oh, okay, I know what I want to, you know, how I want to approach it now. So yeah, so that's what works for me. I tried doing bigger paintings, and unfortunately I never finish them. Like when I work really big, I just don't, and I move around like a pretty excessive amount. So like having to carry large work is not very easy. It's a lot easier to like, I normally would stay like in like a 24 by 30 inch or smaller range, but yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I wish I could be more like do the bigger paintings. You got to stay, you know, you like do what works for you. So.
Right. Right.
But
Well, and I think there's something to it too. I mean, just looking at some of the paintings that you've done that have been on the smaller side, the level of detail that you can pack into something, you know, even just using a very, very fine brush is extraordinary. You know, something that I've always been impressed with by looking at some of your original artwork is knowing the scale of it and then seeing tiny little things that you'll put in there that can just completely change everything, whether it's a light or like tiny little details of a glow on a face. It's just always something that, you know, it blows my mind how people can work in such a small scale, but get so much incredible detail in there. So it's just something I've personally always been fascinated by.
yeah, I think we find our like little niches along the way. I mean, I think the other reason I paint small is because I like exploring. Like I'll do a landscape one day and then I'll try a portrait the next, you know, like I don't do a lot of portraiture or realism, but I'll try it, you know, like I throw it in the mix. When you're working big, you can't practice, you know, you can't play around as much. There's too much time to devote to a piece. So and along the way I found like, I mean, we all have our like little things. So like I know that when people that my audience that tends to buy my work or support me, a lot of the stuff I always get like complimented on or heard about is like light sourcing, light stuff. So I tend to like try and make sure those elements show up in some of the paintings because I know that's what the audience might appreciate in a piece, you know? So.
Yeah, I keep looking at yeah, so I'm on your website now and I'll probably go through and share that for a minute if that's all right for you.
Yeah, it's kind of in build phase, so it's like.
Yeah, well, you know, it's still to me absolutely amazing. And I mean, just looking at some of the light source that you have going on, I personally have always found it really difficult to work with like a backlight. And, you know, just looking at this one image that you did, it's, you know, it's fascinating how like you nailed it, but you also nailed the color complements. You've got this amazing atmosphere and everything that you're doing with all of these tiny little subtleties that are in there. You've got Ray Bradbury, 1984. You've got banned books. You know, you've got all of these tiny, tiny little subtleties in there. And they're all like perfectly lit. It's just, to me, it's phenomenal.
Oh,
I love looking at stuff like this and just picking out tiny little minutia and like the subtleties that I know that certain artists will put into pieces that unless you like really look for them, you're probably never going to recognize them. So it's, like I said, to me, it's just something that I really, really look at. And I'm always looking to see like different tiny little minutia that different artists will put into things. You know, but I've always loved your light source. You always have like very dramatic lighting in whatever it is you're working on, whether it's your tattoos, your paintings. You know, so would you say that, you know, working with your light source is one of the primary elements that you try to incorporate into a lot of the imagery that you create? Is that like a primary focus for you?
yeah, I like doing lighting situations. I feel like because there's so much to practice there, making sure that, you know, it's like how you roll the light over form and stuff, which it's still like, even all this time, I'm still working on. And so there's always room for growth in that area. I mean, there's always room for growth in all of these areas, but it's kind of one of those things that I'm always like trying to push it more and see if it comes out better, you know? So.
Yeah, like I love this piece, the piece that we actually used for the cover. You also have such a great element of like telling a story in image, and it's, you know, it's always something I like to hear about, like, okay, well, you know, what kind of a story are you trying to tell? Do you try to tell your stories through a series of different pieces, or is it, do you try to give each piece its own story, or maybe like a secondary story? You know, so it's, you know, once again, just out of personal curiosity, is that something that you try to do over a series of work, or is it something more individual?
No, this probably was the first like series of like where there was continuity to the series. It's funny, I have a tendency, because I like to explore, each painting probably has its own story within it. But when I did this show, this was an art show I did this year, and when I did it, I had a friend who was like, "You're kind of all over the place right now." He's like, "Looks like you're like really in an explorative phase, but maybe you should pull it all in." And so when I originally did this series, it was going to be like futuristic. Like I was thinking about doing this like dystopian future. And then I was like, why would I do like future? We're in it. Like we're in dystopia. Like we're living through it right now. I mean, all the stuff you would see in like a historic movie or whatever on dystopia, we go through daily. So then I tried to bring it more like present. But each like piece, it's all like a dystopian theme, but each piece is its own, in an attempt to be its own narrative. So, and I wanted it to kind of feel like, especially because I got known for doing these kid pictures, and I hadn't done a lot of like kid paintings in my recent past. So I kind of was bringing it full circle to the stuff I had gotten known for like 20 years ago. And then I was like, well, I'll bring the kids back and then I'll put them in this world. And that way there's like, you know, kind of like it's something my older audiences would understand, but I tried to connect it to where we were at currently. So, yeah, it was a fun show. This was like tough. I mean, I only had like, all those paintings were done in like 2.5 or 3 months.
Wow.
So, yeah, so I was like a little overwhelmed. Like, I was like, how many pieces do I need for a solo show? It was kind of like a last minute thing. And so I like raced to get these pieces done for the show. And because sometimes I'll look at stuff and be like, oh man, I would love to get back in and do more like this with it or whatever. And then I'm like, just let them be. They're fine with it. We're just going to let them be. Like, so.
Yeah, phenomenal. I mean,
Thank you.
I like to sit back and, you know, I've got a few oil paintings that I always switch back and forth between, you know, that to me, I'm so neurotic about certain things and building up glazing, and I have a tendency to work in a lot of different transparent layers, to really kind of build up what I'm looking for, as opposed to working a bit more impasto, you know, with a lot thicker pigment and just pure pigment on canvas. So, you know, for me to complete an oil painting usually takes months at a time for any given one. And I've
Yeah.
got 3 or 4 on rotation at any given time. You know, it's like, okay, while that one's drying, you know, let me work on this one. And while that one's drying, I'll work on that one. And while that one's drying, maybe I'll circle back to the first one and see if that one's ready yet. You know, maybe I'll do like a watercolor in between them, just because for me, that's pretty quick to crank out. But like oil paintings for me take forever to finish, just building up those glazes. So to hear that you cranked out each of these in that short a period of time, to me is just on a whole new level.
Well, it was utilizing what you were just talking. I mean, I utilized what you just talked about, because I work in, I work in layers too. I'm definitely more like indirect painting. And so I was able to use the like, and this was different too, because I normally paint on canvas. These ones I was like, I didn't want to have to frame stuff because I knew I had to ship everything. And I was like, I'm just gonna like do everything on cradled panel, and I can send. It's gonna be way easier to ship out to Florida or whatever. And so I not only changed the surface I worked on, but I had changed the medium at the same time too. And it was longer drying, like, because if you work with like something like Liquin or Gelkid, they're a little bit fat, you can, it's 24 hours and you can kind of be back into it. And I was like working with a different, like more traditional medium. And then I didn't realize like how long the dry time was. So I started a painting and then I was like, oh my God, this thing might not even be freaking dry for the show. Like, so that was kind of interesting, but it all worked out in the end. It just was like, kind of like, I had to learn on the fly with it. But when you use like, there's products that help that speed up the working time and stuff. I know like people who work more in illustration field with acrylic will use more like an Elkid or whatever to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they even have like cobalt dryer. That stuff will dry an oil painting overnight if you work with that. But there's benefits and disadvantages of that as well. I mean, from one of the reasons why I like working with oils is because it is still wet for a few days.
Yeah.
So if I decide to go back into it and maybe move some paint around in this way, or maybe add a little bit more, maybe it wasn't just the right tone. So rather than going back over that with another glaze and changing that tone, I can go back through and kind of work in that area while it's still wet. So, there are benefits and disadvantages to, having it dry super quick or having it stay wet longer and being able to work back into it.
Yeah, and I think everybody has their own like how they prefer, because there's some people I know who use like really long, like open, meat and stuff, and it would drive me crazy. I know, like personally, I would not enjoy that very much. But the meat used for that I liked a lot, and then I discovered another medium. I have this oleo gel that I started painting with that I really liked, which was also a pretty nice medium. Because sometimes with the Elkids, they tack up they tack up too fast. And then it's like, you can't manipulate, especially like if it's humid and stuff, or the weather, like, because the weather can affect drying times and stuff. So some of the mediums, I'm like, oh, that was a flipping nightmare. Like, I'll start a painting and be like, I can't even work on this today because I'm going to ruin it because it's drying up too fast. I'm not getting any blend out of it or whatever. So yeah. And then I've learned to like be able to adjust a little accordingly, but there were points where I was like, especially when you're learning a new medium or whatever, there can be like that learning curve where you're like, how the fuck does this work? Where are we at on the scale with this thing? So now, and I tried a bunch of different ones, and it's like, I'm fine. There's ones where I like know I'll use for a certain, like if I had to rush project now, I definitely would use like an Elkid based like medium, and I would, and I would probably do more preliminary drawing stuff ahead of time to just rush the painting process a little more. Because when you're like making it up on the fly, it's like, that works. Never mind, I'm going to wipe that back and start again or whatever. So there's a little bit more time involved in, on letting it unfold. So
awesome. What would you say some of the biggest challenges that you've faced in your art career have been, whether it's tattooing or painting, and how did it kind of impact you?
Oh, I would say this right now, I'm probably in one of my most current, like, what was the word you used? How did you phrase the question initially?
Some of the biggest challenges in your career.
Yeah. So when I came out to Connecticut to help my family, I had just assumed I was going to like step right back into tattooing, and then I'd be right back to work. And then, because I haven't lived out here in like 25 years, so I don't have like an audience really or clientele base here these days. And so it took me like 54 days to get a license here. It was a flipping nightmare. And then and then I couldn't find like a place to work. Like, so I still haven't found like a place to work. So I just thought I haven't been tattooing since I've been here, because I didn't like, if I thought I was going to be here longer, I probably would have went and opened up like a little private place and then just painted and worked on clients that came in from out of town or whatever and built up over time. But I don't have like a timeline of longevity here. So I didn't want to get stuck with, you know, long-term lease and then be like, oh, I'm leaving next week. So I was like, screw it, I'm just going to paint all the time. And I had always painted as like a subsidized income, like, and sometimes the income from painting was better than my tattoo income because it, you know, just depended on the season or where I was at in the time. I mean, it really benefited me during COVID because I couldn't tattoo at all, but I was able to sell all my art. And so, and I didn't get like the stipend check or anything. So I was like living off of what I had saved and then like selling paintings to kind of keep going. And then that happened here. So like, I was like, well, then I got asked to do this art show and I was like, well, I'll just do the art show, but there's no money when you're creating an art show. You have the amount of time you're painting every day. You have no pieces you can't even show anything. So I'm like dead quiet on social media because I can't show any of the like paintings really. You know, you're trying to keep the process quiet till the show happens. So I'm not tattooing, I'm not sharing painting. It's like I'm basically off the grid for the most part, you know. And then, and in these days, those moments of silence can crush you in the world because it's so fast moving. So then I was like in this place where I'm like, oh fuck, there's no work, there's no money. And I'm still painting, you know, like I'm making art, I'm still creating, but the business aspect was like not there because I couldn't do it. Like I was too focused on doing the art show. So that was like really tough. It was like that whole starving artist thing, like all, you know, it's like all of a sudden you're like, I guess we're on ramen noodles and, you know, like, I guess that's what we're doing this month, you know, because there's like, I think what was good for me, the like plus side is this: if you ever want to know that you love something so much, do it for no money for a long period of time, period. Like if there's no paycheck at the end of the day, like all these people are like, dude, I love tattooing so much, I would do it for free. Then do it for free every fucking day for 3 months and then come back and give me that same like, you know, speech, because there's a lot of people that are going to fall out. And there's definitely people that are going to be there at the end and they're going to be like, fuck, that was a nightmare, but man, I'm glad I did it because I know where my passion lies. So the challenge was like, oh, this is what being a starving artist looks like. And and there was frustration because I would have like tattoo friends that were like, dude, I'll buy a piece, you know, when they're done or whatever. And then I would tell them like a price and they're like, that's kind of expensive. And I'm like, dude, I worked on that painting for 20 hours. And I'm asking the same price you just charged that college kid 2 hours of tattooing for. And you are too fucking broke. Like, so I'm like, if you love art, then be a supporter of art, right? But I got a little frustrated at that. Like, and I guess maybe because I was like in the struggle. But what I realized about myself is like, oh, dude, I'm an artist, like through and through. Like, this is what I do. Like, there was no, I'm going to go do something else, or because I was kind of stuck here doing this anyway. So I couldn't, like, there was no, like, I'm going to move and go tattoo, like back, you know, either back in Ohio or back, you know, somewhere else. So it was kind of like, I'm going to like lock in. But then I was like, oh, I'm really going to lock in. Like, I'm just going to put all my energy into making art. And it's crazy. I mean, I probably like at this point I've been here about 6 or 7 months or whatever. And I've probably created like 2 or 3 solo shows worth of work. Like the amount of art I've created is crazy. Yeah, I mean, I've got like a plethora of art. It's crazy because I was like, well, I'm just going to lock in. And we're in like a weird point because the economy's a little shifted right now that people aren't spending the money, right? So the idea is you like invest, you have to like plant to sow or sow to reap, you know, you have to like sow to reap. So the idea is like, I'm like, well, I'll just create like nonstop. Like I'm going to do the way I did when I was a kid and I first started tattooing. Like what helped build my career in tattooing was I fucking tattooed every day. And then we went and drew tattoos every day. Like that was it. It was like every day was like, I'm going to give it my all, like everything, my 110%. And then it's not going to pay off maybe now, like, but in the future there will be fruition to it because the economy turns around. I've got a library of work, that's available, or, or whatever, or even just the amount I've learned or grown during that process. Like those paintings for the, I'll look back at stuff I did even like for that art show and then know that in the 6 months I've been painting, I could do it better today. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I've like learned a different technique to approach it. So there's like these benefits to that, like sink or swim, like I've got to do this, and I think that's like, if I to talk about challenge, there's that sink or swim, like I've either got to do this or I'm not, like, and am I going to give it my all, or am I going to give it like 10% and go focus the other percent somewhere else, So, yeah, that would probably be one of them. That would probably be like the most current one that I could think of. That's been an interesting challenge. But it's like, dude, you're gonna have them. It's just life. Like challenges come up. You're gonna go through. It's like the economy is breaking right now. People who were successful in business are gonna struggle for a little bit. Like we watched it. It's like they're gonna come up, and you just have to deal with it as it arises. So keep swimming.
Those people that aren't wholeheartedly in, those people that aren't truly committed, they're going to fall off, and
yeah,
we're going to have more of a condensed kind of community, because of that. But that's okay, because there are people that have been in it for the long haul that are willing to do it and willing to sacrifice for it. And, it kind of helps, for lack of a better term, kind of weed people out. In a way, because those that aren't truly dedicated are gonna fall off. They're gonna be like, oh well, there's no money in this anymore, let me go do something else.
Yeah, you're gonna see that with burnout rate on its own. I mean, if you look at like, you still see people like Guy, for example, who's been doing this chugging along for 30 years and is still creating, not just creating, but creating better, or work than he did maybe early on, and there's still growth happening, right? That's what I'm trying to get to. There's still like a sense of growth 30 years in. When I tattoo or whatever, I've been doing this quarter of a century now, a little over a quarter of a century. When I go do guest spots or whatever, or work at shops now, on average, I'm twice as old as the average tattoo artist in these fucking places. Almost everywhere I go, I'm at least 20 years old, or what, I'm 48, 49. So maybe I'm like, 20 years older than the majority of tattoo artists, at least, right? Where the fuck did all the people from my generation go, right? So some of them got quiet, they get in their studios and they settle in and they do their stuff and they're still growing or whatever. It's hard to like maintain a level like someone like Guy does, where he's still like, or you see these people and they're still out and still doing it and still like showing up at these places and still growing. Because I've seen plenty of artists where it's like they just stopped at their 10-year mark, and then that's like that's where they are and where they have been and where they continue. Like they're never trying to push beyond that or whatever. That's an interesting thing. Like for when you were talking about, you're going to watch people kind of fall off economically. You'll watch people fall off based on burnout, like where they just kind of give up. They give up the ship, and then they're not pushing forward anymore. So it's like
complacent.
Get complacent. Yeah.
And that just leads to stagnation, and with no growth, there's no innovation, and so it's like, okay, cool, you're still doing the exact same thing you were doing 10, 15 years ago, and you haven't progressed at all.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why I love being involved with different tattoo communities and interviewing different artists from different areas that have different perspectives on things, because every time I do, it kicks me in the butt and it says there's still more for you to realize. There's still more for you to grow, no matter what level you get to.
Yeah.
Talking with people like you, talking with people like Guy and John Clue, when I got to talk to him briefly up in Canada, James Tex, Anthony Tex, some of these people are constantly evolving.
Yeah, yeah,
And they're going through these transformations, and you can see it in their body of work.
yeah.
And it's fascinating to me. And every time I talk to someone that's been around for a while, it's like, okay, no, there's a lot more I have to learn, and it just gives me that drive and that push.
Yeah, I'm definitely like I follow a lot of almost every artist you just mentioned there, because I'm always like keep going, like I'm like super excited to see it, because I've watched so many people just kind of dip out or whatever. So every time I see these people that are like not just continually going but still growing, is always like, God damn, man, that's awesome. And that's encouraging to me, because then I'm like, fuck, if they're doing it, then I could, then I can do it. So, which is good.
Yeah. Speaking of which, you're actually presenting at the Paradise Gathering this year.
Yeah.
What's your seminar on?
So because of where I was at with all this stuff, it's hard. Like I couldn't like put myself into when I got asked to see if I wanted to present, I was like, I can't talk about tattooing. I'm not fucking tattooing. And I feel like, although I might know this stuff, it feels like hypocritical, or like it feels weird to me to like present on in an area I'm not currently working right now, So, so I decided I was going to do painting, because I'm like, well, that's where I'm at, like that's what I'm doing. Because I started going to seminars or like conventions, and I would just paint at conventions also. And I would have like artists that were like, man, I wish they would like come up all in pain. They're like, I wish I could do that. You kind of make it look easy or whatever. And I was like, dude, you can, I could sit with you and show you how to do it. So I decided to do a workshop originally I was going to do one on like storytelling. And then I was like, I think I'm going to do this oil painting thing. And I can like interject some of that stuff into that. But I broke it down into 3 days. So I'm doing a 3-day workshop at Paradise. The first day is, and I wanted to my idea was like, I'm going to demystify oil painting for tattoo artists that have either tried it and gotten frustrated because they couldn't get the tools to do what they wanted it to do, or they never tried it because they were too scared. There's always that, like, people with oils are like, it takes too long, I don't want to get involved in that, or whatever, like, kind of holds them back from even trying. So I was like, I'll do one that's like, and I think I called it demystifying oil painting, where it's like, I'll show you I want it to be like a Bob Ross thing, where it's like, I want to break it down to the easiest parts for you, but not like where he only like used so limited a thing and then just showed one particular style. In my head, I was like, I want to just show people how to use the tools and to show them what the tools do. And then that way they can apply it, if they're like, dude, I just want to draw like a traditional dragon or whatever, okay, cool. Like, I can show you how to do that, and you could still get the blends, and you could still do the stuff. Like, I want you to be, I don't like when you go to like a lot of workshops, it's like, this is how I do it. And I want to show people just how to do it so that they could apply it to their thing. Cause I don't, there's not a lot of people that are going to paint the way I paint or whatever. They're going to want to bring their own voice into it. So the first day is like just the tool, the equipment, the supports, what they do, like how they interact. And I'll be doing like demos, and then like having people like actually use the stuff to feel how it feels different. Cause I think that's super important. Like, you can watch a YouTube video and someone's like, we're going to take this color and we're going to, swipe the brush, but they don't talk about like the pressure of the brush or like the drag, like there's like a drag, or like if those mediums have a chance to like tack up a little, you get like a whole different effect than you would if you were using like a super wet medium. So I wanted to give people like, just essentially like give them a toolbox, like, okay, cool. Like, here's the toolbox to do it. So the first day would be like mediums and the brushes and stuff. And the second day would be how to approach like early part of a painting. So whether you wanted to do something that was like a alla prima painting, or you wanted to do like the wipe off method to start a painting, or you want to do like a Versailles, like I'll show the various ways to do the early stage of a painting. And then the third part would be like the layering and the more complex stuff, like how to do like the complexity of painting, and then some stuff on varnishing and like how to like, do the final aspect of the painting. So it all works as like a continuous thing, but I kind of broke it up into 3 days in case someone wanted to take another seminar. You know, they're like, dude, I know about all the brushes. Like, I just want to come in and see the like final part. So I was like, I'll break it. It's so much information, but I was like, if I break it into 3 sections, it allows people to kind of come in where they feel they would benefit the most for it. So that was kind of the thought process behind that, you know, why I broke it up that way. So, but it's like, to me, it's like tattooing. It's like, if you show someone how to use the tools, then they can explore and become like whatever their particular voice is in the world of art. You know, it's like, if you just are showing them how to do like your thing, you know, because once they have the tools, they can go listen to someone who's more in tune with the style they want to do, and then have an understanding of like, oh, okay, now I know what he's doing or why he's doing that. So, and it kind of came from, I did a sculpting course once, and I had it said it was for novices, like sculpting for novices, you know, or whatever. Well, it didn't say it. It was like sculpting drapery and anatomy for beginners. But it wasn't. All these people had taken the courses before, and I was a like legit beginner. I had no sculpting stuff ever. And it was with this guy, Philippe Ferreau, who was an awesome teacher. The guy's like a master sculptor. And so I went up there and I was like, I had no idea, you know, he's like, you know, we're gonna talk about the planes. Like, I'm pretty much, I don't want to say self-taught because I've taken courses and classes along the way, but definitely I didn't have a locked-in education on my journey. You know, it was like picking up pieces along the way. So when I got there, I had not known like what the planes of the body were, you know, like the planes of the face and stuff. I didn't know planes of anatomy and, you know, any of that stuff, or an écrasé model or whatever, all that type of stuff. I didn't know what the lingo was. I didn't know what he was, you know, addressing. I didn't know how all the different tools worked and what they actually did. And so I get there, and the first day of sculpting, he's like walking the class through, like, you know, we're going to sculpt the foot or whatever. And I was like, so lost. I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about right now. And he was like, why would you come to the class and not know the tools? And I was like, it said beginner. Like, it said beginner. I just thought, you know, it's for a beginner. So I like had to go home that night, and I'm like on my iPad, like studying, like, what are the planes of the body? You know, like, what's an écrasé, you know, like model? What do these different tools do? And then the next day I came in and like had basic knowledge to actually do stuff. And it benefited me because I had shown like that I actually was going to try outside of class. He like sat with me and helped me way more than he was going to. But I feel like it's good for people to have a basic knowledge, and you don't see that given as courses very often either. Like, it's usually like hey, I'm doing a, you know, like a portrait class or a workshop, or I'm doing a workshop on, you know, this, but there's not like foundational element workshops very often. So that's what I thought. I was like, this seems useful to me. It's something I would wish I would have had early on in my career. So yeah, that was where that came from.
Awesome. Yeah. So I came from a background, I went to art school and all that stuff, and that was like all that we had. And talking to other friends of mine that also went to different art schools, they had very different experiences. You know, they had a lot more hands-on technique training, and they were shown how to use brushes in certain ways and stuff. And I'm sitting back and I'm like, yeah, but I can tell you the acidity of, you know, cardboard and how long that's going to take to break down. And, you know, it's like, oh, that's, you know, it's good to know certain things. And that's what I got a lot of. And it's information that you're absolutely right. A lot of people don't have. They don't have oh, this is how you use a fan brush properly. This is where using a long rigger brush would come into play. Or this is what kind of bristle you want to have if you're working with this type of medium or that type of medium.
I mean, there's so much information too, because it's like I didn't know, like when I first started, like why a short handle or long handle brush was even, and every aspect of it has a fucking reason. Like, it's all got reason. Yeah. Like, I don't know, I'm just going to get this one. It looks like $285. I can afford that, you know? So like I guess we'll just make this thing do what I'm going to make it do. So yeah, it's kind of funny. But I feel like, especially if you don't have our college, I mean, I didn't have that That was not something my family would have probably endorsed at the time. And so,
it took me changing majors a couple of times to,
yeah,
actually figure it out. But, so in the art school process, there were a whole bunch of different classes that were required, including like printmaking and drawing, soft pastels. So it wasn't like primarily focused on any one given medium. It was like, we're going to throw all these different mediums at you. You're going to have to learn how to use them on the fly.
yeah,
And it was, there were certain classes I took, I never knew how to use soft pastels. I'm like, oh yeah, it's like using sidewalk chalk. Yeah, it can't be too difficult, right? Very wrong.
yeah,
That was one of the most difficult mediums I ever used. But they said, listen, at the end of the class, if you don't like working in soft pastels, they're like, it's cool. Seriously, grind it all up, throw it in with a little bit of linseed oil or some gum arabic, and you can paint with it.
oh yeah,
And it
yeah,
was like, whoa,
yeah.
but it's
Really,
little subtleties, like little basic things that I picked up while I was in school that completely changed the way that I do certain things. Like not mixing acrylics and oils together.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
I know a few artists that they were like, well, why can't you? And it's like, okay, this is going to be a long discussion for another day, but it's like you're literally working with two separate mediums. One's oil based and one is water based. They're not going to mix very well.
yeah.
And if you layer them in the wrong way, it's game over. Your painting's going to fall apart.
Yeah, I mean, you can foundationally work one way to the other, but you can work one acrylic to oil, but not oil to acrylic.
Exactly.
But yeah, I don't know if I'd mix the two as their likeness. Like, I wonder if this white acrylic paint would mix with my red oil.
Yeah, it doesn't go so well. But it's little stuff like that I really got a little bit of insight into.
Yeah, well, I'm like laughing with, it's like, I think about this too, because when you're like when you do stuff or learn new tricks, then you're like, oh, okay, now I get it. And then you get to a point where you're like, oh, I kind of know some of this stuff now. And then when you like are interacting with another person who doesn't know that stuff, it's like you were just saying, like, then I would have these people who didn't know that. And I'm like, that probably makes up way more people than that do know that, So, especially because we're always trying to like figure out, it's like I watch people in tattooing now and I'm like, oh, they don't really know their tools well. They know like what a good tattoo is or what, but it's like, and now we've really like brought down our level of tools, in tattooing to, a single machine trying to do a bunch of different tricks. And it's interesting the difference between, what happens when you actually know your range of tools and what you are capable doing with them. So I find that to be interesting. And I think that's what I like about painting and tattooing. There's like so many layers. Like if you are like, I'm an education buff, like I love learning shit. So if you like learning stuff, it's like oil painting or tattooing, it's like they are exponential in the amount of knowledge that can be gained if you want to delve in. So it's like, even if you're like at a basic level, there's still like, you still probably have way more information than most people, the majority of people. So, and then as you progress, it's like every like little thing gets you closer to like mastership or whatever, which I think is cool. Like, because there's always potential to be even better than you were. So,
Right.
I find that like limitless growth.
Awesome. So that kind of brings me to my next question. Where would you want to go from here? Right. You've got a great art career going, gorgeous paintings that you're creating. You're still extremely skilled in tattoos, even though you might not have, kept up with that since your move.
Yeah.
But where do you see your careers going from here? Like what's the outlook? What's coming up in the future?
There's a part right now, I'm like, I really am into the idea of just trying to like grow artistically. And one of the things with tattooing for me at the time is the audience was shifting for me in my tattooing. So I was a little bit more limited in what I was able to attempt or try. So I was like, what I've liked about painting right now is I can buckle down and really push the education aspect of that. But there's a part of me that's like, man, I know so much more now. Like, I'd like to get back to tattooing and apply what I've learned from this world into that world. So there's a chance, you know, like I'm looking forward to, like, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here. And there's parts of me that's like, as things have kind of opened up, I'm like, well, maybe I'll just go on the road and do like guest spots and stuff and kind of trickle back in into that world. So that's probably going to happen. Mostly it's just about, I've been really just, I want to see how far I can push like myself like as an artist, just in general. Like, so I don't really have like maybe as much of what the like goal is. It's more like you know, the long-term vision. It's more just about like buckle down and just go to work, and then like let things kind of unfold the way they're meant to. Because what I find is, for me, is like, as I've done, opportunities arise that I didn't even know I was like looking for. And then I'm like, oh, that's like, right now I'm doing a job for, I'm working on a project for like this like interactive gaming place or whatever. It's like submersive art experience. I don't know how to really explain it, but I got asked to do this, like, you know, they reached out and asked me to make a proposal for a project. Like, I didn't go looking for, like, I don't even know how it fell into my lap or whatever. I don't know how they even discovered my art, but they gave me kind of free reign. So I'm working on a project for that. That's pretty cool. It's like this 1950s television where the zombies chasing. I've like basically built this giant wheel of these like zombies. I'll see if I can't reach it because it's right here in front of me. But it's kind of cool. It's like this zombies. Oh, I'm dropping shit, but it's like these zombies, but they're like, they rotate and they'll be chasing each other, like chasing these victims. So that's like one of the projects I'm working on right now, which is pretty cool. And it fits in like this giant 1950s television. So then my dad, and it's kind of cool because being here, like my dad was, you know, is helping me on this project. So he has done woodworking and stuff. So we're building this vintage television, and then that'll be in there. And then I've got like a giant background painting. So it'll be like different layers of these, like kind of like carnival style, you know? So that's pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about that. But, you know, so like, I don't know, like so projects like come up and then I'm like, oh yeah, like we'll do that. So that's kind of where I'm at right now with this. So letting the world unfold. Like every time I try too much, it never goes the way I was planning. So like it's like never seems to fall in soup with that. So
awesome. So that will bring me up to one of my final questions. And this is actually a question that during a previous interview someone had asked. So I can't necessarily take credit for the origin of this question, but it's, what are some of the truths you have found that are simple but not easy about painting, tattooing, art, processes, industry, life in general? What are some of the truths that you have come across?
I don't know if it's a truth, but it's definitely a lesson that I wish I would have learned at the beginning of my career, especially because I'm a focused artist. Like I'm always focusing on the task of art, is take business and marketing classes. Like if I could like share one thing with like any, you know, people starting out in their careers, or even myself, because I'm trying to get in, like study marketing and stuff now. It's like easy to sit in the studio, make art, or to sit, you know, to like make stuff. But if you can't unload it, or you're not doing your bookkeeping properly or whatever, you know, it's like our art careers make up like maybe a smaller percentage than our business is when you're an artist for a living. that's like, to me, is probably a truth that's like sounds easy enough, but isn't, not enough of us do it, so then we get to these points where like, I'm seeing a lot of artists right now that are going through, like they're freaking out because they're getting a lot of cancellations, and they're getting, it's like cancellation season. I mean, if you've done it long enough, it's winter, like you're going to get that, like you're going to get those seasons. So, but when you have, if you have a better business sense and even marketing sense, there's people that get right through it, don't even know what happened to, that ever even occurred, because they prepared for the storm, because they knew to prepare for the storm. So I know it's not like art, maybe painterly related, but I think that's a huge thing for artists, is like knowing how to prepare for this. Like I got lucky, like I haven't worked in almost 6 months, but I'm still getting by, So it's like knowing how to prepare for the storms and not freak out when they come. That's a big one. So
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, I think the other thing I wish I would have learned too is like, and maybe it's especially being an artist, is I'm trying to think of the way to like properly word this. Like belief, like self-belief, or like having to, separate because now we're in a new world where it's like we have to put ourselves forward more. It's like I kind of came up in the world of art initially, where it was like you just put your art in the world, and you didn't necessarily have to be a personality and selling, comedy skits on fucking Instagram to like market yourself. But you also have to be able to like have confidence and, belief in what you're doing, to present yourself. Like I recently had an interaction. I felt really bad about it because I had an interaction with a young lady who's an artist, and she had a shit load following, like huge following on social media. And she was like, basically like, I'm a new painter, and was doing turnaround videos. And she was like wearing this like ski mask thing. And it felt like, to me, it just felt super gimmicky. And I was like, and her art was really good. And I was like, there's no way she's a new artist. I'm like, I feel like she was an established artist who didn't know who was like, I'm going to try a new marketing ploy. And then reinvented herself with like, I'm going to reinvent myself. I'll put on a mask. They won't know it's me. So I thought the whole thing was kind of like this gimmick, like this marketing ploy, because she was blowing up. And then I talked to her, and she was like, I'm really just shy. Like, I'm just shy. And it was a good way to hide and keep my life separate from the internet world. And I was like, fuck, I totally get that, because it's hard putting yourself out in the world, now that we're like kind of putting ourselves out. So I think there's something that we have to like sometimes, it sounds simple enough, is to like overcome our fears and be like more out there. Like, I mean, it's easy to do when you have to teach and stuff. It's like you can get it's like super imposter syndrome. Like, who the fuck am I to go up and present to these kids, people or whatever. And so it's like constantly you're working on overcoming fears to keep moving forward or whatever, to step into new levels in your career, or to share your work with the world and not be, not remain small and hold back because you're afraid of how you'll be perceived. Because when we share our art, it's like we're sharing ourselves. So it feels like we're putting ourselves on the line more. So I think there's something to that part too, like maybe like, working within yourself to overcome those things. Like I said, it might not be like technique related, but just things I've learned along the way that are like super important, because there's a lot of like opportunities that arose for me that I could have shrunk back from. Even like doing this TV thing, like I never built a zombie box before. I didn't know, like I just was like, I want to do, this is the thing I want to do. I'm going to make it happen, So, so it's like stepping into that fear helps you like, helps you grow and helps you like get better opportunities. So that would probably be, there's my second one. So.
Awesome. I couldn't agree more. Especially in today's day and age with social media and everything like that, it's like we really are putting ourselves out there. I mean, even doing this and broadcasting it on YouTube. you know, I've had people come up to me at different conventions and they're like, "Oh, I've seen your stuff on YouTube," and it's like, "Hi, yeah, I'm an actual human. Like,
Sorry.
thanks."
Yeah.
It's part of what I do to give
No.
back to the community as a whole, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm, you know, they might try to talk to me and I'm just like, "Yeah, hi."
Yeah.
Kind of, you know, like, yeah, cool. I'll answer questions, but like, I'm kind of shy in person. So,
Yeah. And I think
that's,
that's,
yeah,
it's got to be stressful for you too, because, and that's just the people being nice. Like,
yeah,
I mean, there's equally as many people that aren't nice, that are just
right.
not nice out there. So,
Which, you know, I mean, you're going to encounter people like that in every walk of life, though.
yeah.
You know, especially people that don't want to progress. And so they want to hold everyone else back, or, you know, people that don't see logic or rationale and they're not really thinking things through. And they're like, "Oh, well, that's not a good idea," or "You shouldn't do that," or like, "What gives you the credit to do that?" It's like, well, maybe I don't have any, but I'm going to try it anyway and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Um, if it doesn't go well, that's okay, because at least then I'll know it doesn't go well.
Yeah. Dude, I hate to interrupt, but I got to let my dog out because she's driving me crazy right now. My dad just got here. So sorry. Give me
Go
one,
for it.
guys. I'm just going to let her outside.
Cool.
Okay. Good.
So at this point, if anyone that's watching via YouTube or anywhere else has any questions, by all means, drop them in the chat box. You know, let's, if you have any questions to ask Gunnar, by all means, type them in and I'll ask away.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I told him I'd be done around 2, so I didn't know what I was thinking at the
Not a
time.
problem. I was going to say we can wrap up. I don't know if we have any, we've got Bruno Salvatierra. He'll also be up at the Paradise Gathering this year. Made a comment in the YouTube, awesome work. You know, he loves the interview. So that's awesome. Don't really have any other comments in the YouTube. So yeah, I mean, I'm done with all of my questions. So.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. I mean to get torn away there. Just
No problem at all. None at all. Well, thank you for taking some time to talk with us today.
yeah. No,
Really
thanks.
looking forward to meeting you in person up at Paradise. I think that's going to be, it's going to be a great time this year.
Yeah, I'm
So,
excited. Yeah. Dude, the last time I did it was awesome. I mean, that place was awesome. I had probably one of my favorite convention moments was there. So it's a pretty place. But
yeah, we should, I'm helping out with the collaborative art area, as well as presenting. So I've got a number of different projects, like drawing projects, collaborative art projects, art fusion stuff that, you know, we'll see how it goes. But it should be a great time with a whole bunch of great artists. So really
so
excited.
awesome. I'll see you there, Jason.
Awesome. Thank you very much for joining us today. Take care, and I'll see you in October.
Sounds good, man. You have a good one. Later.
You too. Take care. And for everyone out there still watching, thank you very much for tuning in today. If you like today's interview, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button down at the bottom of the page. This way you can stay in touch and get notified for any and all upcoming interviews. And we've got a number of great ones coming up as well. So please stay tuned. Tune in next week for another edition of Skill Building Sunday here live on the Reinventing the Tattoo Network. And I will catch everyone then. Until then, keep those hands moving